Since the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen, Sukuna has had an interest in Megumi Fushiguro and his 10 Shadows technique. In fact, Sukuna seemed to be impressed, if not proud of Megumi, when he made his incomplete domain. The King of Curses even saved Megumi during the tragedy-ridden Shibuya arc. However, there is some debate on why he did that to begin with. So today we'll be diving into a possible theory regarding Megumi and his technique, Sukuna, as well as the Culling Game. Megumi, Sukuna, and their techniques. To really understand, let's start with Megumi. He's a part of the main trio in the series alongside Yuji and Nobara. Between the three of them, Megumi is knowledgeable and more serious than the other two. Because of Yuji and Nobara's more casual attitudes, Megumi finds both sorcerers annoying at first. But this isn't a Megumi analysis. The most important thing about him in this context is his innate technique, which he inherited from his Zenin lineage. The 10 Shadows technique allows the user to conjure and control Shikigami. For context, Shikigami are summoned from Megumi's technique through an exorcism ritual. This ritual is the only way for Megumi to gain and control Shikigami as well. If they're exorcised, it joins Megumi's arsenal of Shikigami. Speaking of them, Megumi can only tame a max of 10 at a time. Though the more powerful the Shikigami, the more cursed energy is required to summon it. Multiple people can defeat it, but this causes the ritual to fail. In a sense, this makes gathering Shikigami somewhat difficult. Not only does Megumi need enough cursed energy to summon one or multiple at once, he also needs to exercise it on his own. In fact, the young sorcerer's technique is exactly why Sukuna is interested in him, but we'll get to that later on. Let's talk more about Megumi's technique and the Shikigami he uses. As some are aware, Buddhism themes are somewhat prevalent within the series. During Gojo's flashback arc, he quotes Buddha. The quote itself is the well-known heaven and earth line. After Buddha Sakayuni was born, he took several steps, pointed to both heaven and earth, and said, "Throughout heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one." Then there is another nod to Buddhism involving Gojo, the 6 eyes. Within the religion is the concept of the 5 eyes, which involves classifying the eye into 5 categories: the physical eye, the heavenly eye, the wisdom eye, the dharma eye, and the Buddha eye. While there are only 5 eyes in the religious text, and Gojo's technique is called 6 eyes, it's possible the 6th one refers to the ability to see cursed energy. So hallmarks of Buddhism are clearly seen within the series and serve as themes. But with that being explained, let's jump into Megumi Shikigami. Each Shikigami we've seen, except for Nue and the rabbits, have a symbol for one of the 10 divine items. The items themselves are prevalent in Buddhism, serving as another reference. Now there's something special all the items can do once they're brought together, and we'll explain how this relates to Sukuna soon. But with all that being said, let's cycle back to Megumi's technique. Canonically, the 10 Shadows technique is strong enough that it defeated an ancestor of Gojo who had Limitless and 6 eyes. As us fans know, this is a really big deal because currently, the 6 eyes and Limitless techniques make Gojo the strongest sorcerer alive. Strong enough that he has to be sealed away rather than killed, and yet Megumi has a technique that could possibly defeat him. This brings up an interesting point. Sukuna shows virtually no interest in Gojo beyond wanting to take him down. Instead, he is more intrigued by Megumi. There is something about Megumi, specifically his technique, that interests Sukuna and is something he deems valuable. It is so useful to him that he even heals Megumi during one of the most important events, the Shibuya arc. It's also not the only time Sukuna has shown interest in the young sorcerer. When he fights Megumi during the Cursed Womb arc, Sukuna notices Megumi is holding back. Sukuna is genuinely interested in seeing Megumi's curse technique in full. Maybe it's because he believes fighting Megumi at his full power would be fun. Or maybe he wants Megumi to cultivate it. But we'll get into that later. Besides his possible motivation, there is another early instance of Sukuna showing interest in Megumi's technique. And that's when Sukuna deduced that instead of a talisman, the 10 Shadows uses shadows as an intermediary. Megumi is confused by him bringing that up, but it's clear Sukuna is trying to understand how Megumi's technique works. Sukuna's own reaction even implies this. He thinks about the technique and then says he doesn't get it. Why would he want to understand how the 10 Shadows works? We'll get into that after we have a more fundamental understanding of Sukuna first. To really bring this theory to life, it is important to lay out multiple concepts. Sukuna, his cursed objects, and his abilities are exactly what tie into why Sukuna needs Megumi and his 10 Shadows. Sukuna was an ancient sorcerer that was so powerful within the Jujutsu world that he divided it. But regardless of his power, Sukuna was ultimately killed. Unfortunately, he didn't die from Jujutsu, so he became a curse. And not just any curse, Sukuna is the infamous king of curses. Unfortunately, Sukuna's death also caused unanticipated results. Due to his 4 arms, Sukuna's 20 fingers became indestructible special grade curse objects. Jujutsu Society, specifically the Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical College, had 6 of the 20 at the start of the series. Despite trying to keep Sukuna's power away from the world, his fingers are strong enough that they wear down the talismans around them, which eventually attracts curses. The fingers themselves are important because consuming them allows Sukuna to essentially incarnate. In a normal situation, this would mean Sukuna would once again have a human body and not be resigned to existing in cursed objects scattered around Japan. Sadly for Sukuna, this free reign over a body doesn't happen. Instead, the person who does swallow Sukuna's fingers, Yuji Itadori, is a perfect vessel. This means that Yuji can suppress Sukuna, which in turn means that if Yuji ate all 20 fingers and was killed, Sukuna would die as well. Now, why is this important to Megumi? The answer is simple. Sukuna was devilishly delighted to be incarnated before he realized Yuji could suppress him. Ergo, Sukuna is left without a body he can control, and Sukuna's ultimate goal is to have a body. Now, what exactly would Sukuna do once he had a body? Sukuna's own words perfectly explain what his endgame is. Firstly, Sukuna has stated a society based around strength is what interests him. He wants to fight strong opponents. Ergo, he would most likely use his power to restructure Jujutsu Society around a hierarchy of power. Secondly, when Sukuna first incarnated within Yuji, he immediately wanted to kill others and commit heinous acts. So really, it could be said that Sukuna wants a body in order to rewire Jujutsu Society, as well as contribute to general chaos. That being said, obtaining a body is no easy feat, which is where Megumi might be needed. But hey, before we go any further, I'm gonna need you to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. Now this is where Sukuna's domain expansion comes in. The King of Curses domain is known as Malevolent Shrine. This appears as a Buddhist shrine that has been desecrated to more resemble Sukuna's status as the strongest curse. For example, skulls decorate the shrine and there is a multitude of horns on the roof as well. It is the perfect environment for Sukuna to exist. With that being said, Malevolent Shrine has a unique trait. Typically, domain expansions create a separate space by utilizing a barrier, but Sukuna's doesn't do that. Rather, his domain is manifested from virtually nothing. It is a big enough accomplishment that the manga refers to it as akin to an artist painting not on a canvas, but on air. This makes Sukuna's domain not only mechanically special, but it provides a similar escape route. Due to the lack of a barrier, a binding vow is created that multiplies the sure hit of the domain to a maximum radius of almost 200 meters. The radius can also be decreased by Sukuna at will, like when he reduced it in order to avoid Megumi. Again, this shows his bizarre fascination with the young Zenin. When Sukuna was first introduced, he wanted to cause as much mayhem and murder as possible. He showed no remorse, no concern for anyone around him, yet he wanted to make sure Megumi wasn't within the domain's area after only knowing him for a short period of time. But while on the topic of Malevolent Shrine, we should also look at the name. In Japanese, Malevolent Shrine is written as Fukuma Mizushi. Fukuma is a reference to Fukumaiden, which is a place where demons lurk. However, this isn't the key point. What's most important is Mizushi. It could have several meanings, but if we ignore the prefix mi, a zushi is a tiny Buddhist shrine used for storage of important items. Things like Buddhist images or scrolls of sutras. With this context, it isn't too hard to imagine that Malevolent Shrine also acts as a storage place for cursed techniques. Why cursed techniques? They're important and powerful. Plus, we've seen Sukuna possibly be capable of mimicking outside techniques. During the Shibuya arc, Sukuna seemingly replicates the cursed spirit, Jogo's Disaster Flames. Sukuna hints to it relating to his technique as well, saying, "I won't cheat by revealing my cursed technique." There has also been evidence that a domain can relate to a user's cursed technique. Hiromi Higuruma is a good example of this, seeing as his innate technique is directly tied to his domain. Therefore, it is plausible that Sukuna can somehow store techniques within Malevolent Shrine. Assuming Sukuna's technique and domain are related like this, it does present a problem. Couldn't Sukuna just store and mimic Megumi's technique? Maybe not. Jogo's technique isn't inherited. He is also a curse. Between the two, I think it's most likely Sukuna was able to store and then use Jogo's technique because the latter made an agreement with the King of Curses. Megumi would know better than to make any arrangement with Sukuna. Therefore, Sukuna couldn't utilize his technique. So why would Sukuna be interested in Megumi? Sukuna's plan. We've mentioned earlier that the Shikigami Megumi can conjure each share a motif with the 10 divine items. So at last, we can get to the nitty-gritty of Sukuna's scheme and his motivations. Within Buddhism, one of the 10 items can be used to resurrect the dead. As previously explored, in Sukuna's eyes, Yuji is not a suitable body because he can suppress him. Yuji being capable of that really puts a wrench in Sukuna's plans. However, if he figured out what the 10 items did, he could get an obedient body. Sukuna's own words even confirmed that he needs Megumi for something specific. Once again, it's what Sukuna says to Megumi during Shibuya when he is unconscious. The King of Curses specifically tells him, "Don't die, there's something I need you to do." The phrasing outright lets us know that Sukuna has a plan for Megumi. The young sorcerer will somehow aid Sukuna. Not only that, but it is something that only Megumi can do. Either way, Sukuna requires something only Megumi can accomplish. This could mean Sukuna needs Megumi to use his 10 shadows in order to resurrect him. And resurrection is a big deal. When Gojo was able to recover from a literal stab to the head, it was seen as miraculous, which it is. Reverse curse technique is a very difficult ability to master, and even more so on the verge of death. Because Sukuna doesn't have his original body, he can't use those types of techniques. But that isn't to say that it can't be resurrected. This would achieve Sukuna's goal for a suitable body. But unfortunately for Sukuna, Megumi clearly wouldn't enter any agreement with him. So with no means to access the technique and use it, what would Sukuna do? He could force Megumi into a binding vow to summon the Shikigami required for his resurrection. But how exactly would Sukuna do that? One way is use Megumi's soft spot for Sumiki, his sister, against him. Megumi only wants to enter the Culling Game in order to save her. Not to mention, it is awfully convenient that Yuji's group has already discussed pulling non-sorcerers out and offering a substitute. Sukuna could be that substitute for Sumiki. Seeing as Megumi would do anything for her sister, who's to say he wouldn't resurrect an ancient evil for her safety? In theory, Megumi can summon any of the 10 with enough cursed energy. But a Shikigami that can literally defy death is likely to require a massive amount of cursed energy. Perhaps it would even require the most out of all other Shikigami. So really, all Sukuna can do is wait for Megumi to cultivate his cursed energy. And right now is the perfect time for Megumi to do just that. The very nature of the current events, the Culling Game, pits sorcerers against one another. Survival of the fittest. This Darwinistic approach would force only the most powerful sorcerers to live. These conditions would cause Megumi to develop enough cursed energy to conjure the Shikigami needed. Assuming it's available to be tamed, and that Megumi succeeds in the ritual to do so. It also serves another purpose. The game itself is chaotic by nature. There's so many different goals and motivations that it is the perfect amount of chaos for Sukuna to recover his body. It also helps that right now, everyone is focused on rescuing non-sorcerers. Sukuna gaining a body isn't even on their radar at the moment. What adds to this is the fact that Sukuna and Kenjaku seemingly know each other. Without entering a colony, Yuji was counted as a participant in the Culling Game. But why was he included? It all goes back to Sukuna's fingers. Yuji being considered a member within the game presents the idea that Kenjaku planned for Sukuna's fingers to be consumed. In other words, Kenjaku may have previously made a binding vow with Sukuna while he was alive. It would fit the other agreements Kenjaku has made. The incarnated sorcerers within the Culling Game only exist because of a binding vow they made with Kenjaku. Though this would mean Yuji became a vessel for Sukuna as a part of Kenjaku's plan. It is true Yuji swallowed the finger through his own free will. But knowing Kenjaku, and that he looks at the big picture, he could have created the perfect events that led up to Sukuna incarnating within Yuji. It just didn't go exactly as planned. So Sukuna had to come up with a new scheme. Now what exactly is the plan? The answer is simple. To find a more suitable body that won't fight back. Moving on to the Culling Game itself. Besides functioning as a means for Megumi to grow and develop his cursed energy, and a way for Sukuna to gain a new body, it also serves to connect huge storylines within the series. Because of it, we've already seen one character be revealed to be a player within the game, which is Kasumi Miwa. And we hadn't seen her for quite some time. There has also been returning characters like Yuta Okotsu and Yuki Tsukumo. If anything, these three events prove the Culling Game also carries the theme of reintroducing plot points we may have forgotten after Shibuya. An example of this is that Sukuna's true form has already been revealed in the past. Ergo, it's not hard to imagine that we'd see it again in an arc that revolves around revelations and growth. On the topic of becoming stronger, an evolutionary fight to the death with other sorcerers will be right up Sukuna's alley, especially if they're ancient, ridiculously strong sorcerers. Plus, if we follow the logic that Sukuna can store and use cursed techniques, the Culling Game will be right for picking up new and powerful techniques. There are a multitude of advantages for Sukuna regarding the game. Making a vow with Kenjaku offers nothing but benefits for Sukuna, especially if we consider what he said when he was awoken within Yuji for the first time. Light is best appreciated in the flesh. A cursed spirit's flesh is no fun. He is rejoicing over being in a human body again. Also, the King of Curses is so delighted by the mass destruction he can cause. Yet he grows confused and angry by the fact that his vessel can suppress him. So ultimately, Sukuna's goal is to get a worthwhile body he can use for mayhem. And Megumi is likely the only person who can help him achieve that through his technique. Talk about some good food for thought, huh? Sadly, only time will tell if this theory will be proven right. Either way, Sukuna has demonstrated curiosity when it comes to Megumi. And so hopefully, we find out exactly why he is interested in Megumi very soon. It is quite the mystery. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.